you do. Ral, it's great to
Yeah,
meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
yeah, you bet.
So let's begin our journey into your world by asking you this. 6 years ago, the pandemic changed our lives, changed so much about what we did. How did you
Mhm.
get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you live today?
Well, excellent question. As the pandemic started, we were in the business of leasing cruise ships, small cruise ships, to a cruise line. And, March of 2020, cruising around the world stopped.
Yeah.
So our cruise ship, we had one cruise ship left. We had five at one point, and we were down to one. And it was tied up to a dock, not making any money. Our income stream dried up. So it was like, oh my God, what is happening? And where are we going from here? And where's the world going from here? You remember the book Who Moved My Cheese? Well, we figured this chunk of cheese had really moved. We need to figure out where it went. So
Yes.
so we did a huge pivot from that point to uh, the decision that we made was to invest in multifamily real estate syndications across the Sunbelt states in the US. And we joined a multifamily mastermind group to learn how to do it because we'd been investing in real estate for, well, it's been almost 30 years or over 30 years actually, but not multifamily and not syndications. So there was a learning curve there. So we jumped into that. And, by a couple of years later, we had invested in like 23 different syndications. And so that's kind of what we're doing now. And then because of that, I started speaking on stages and trying to drum up investors in our syndications. And then when the interest rates rose, the audience really wasn't that interested in investing in real estate at that time. So my
Yeah.
daughter said, "Well, Mom, you paid to learn how to do these speeches, but why don't you talk about what you really know best, which is how to live your dream?" And all of your friends say, "You guys are living the dream. How do you do it? How do you manage your businesses and still maintain a couple of homes and a yacht and travel all over the world? How do you do all of that?" And, my thought was, well, it's easy. I've just been doing it for a while. And my daughter said, "No, Mom, it's not easy. Otherwise, people wouldn't be asking you how you're doing it."
Yeah.
So I started another business, and it's called Ral West Livin The Dream. And it really taps into my passion, which is that entrepreneurs need to be able to live their lives the way they want to without being tied to their business day and night, without being that overwhelmed, exhausted entrepreneur that I was about 30, 35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And we learned how to get out of that. And I realized that there were six principles that we had used to work our way out of the job of running our business. So that's what I teach now. So COVID was a huge impetus for all of those changes.
What made you round that corner and realize that you were working yourself into a place that you didn't want to be in and you wanted that latitude and freedom?
Oh, well, exhaustion, uh, eating fast food dinners at the office with our like 8-year-old daughter. And, she was doing her homework and watching videos and just hanging out while we were working. That's not exactly a lifestyle that's ideal. And, our health was suffering because we were just eating crap
Yeah.
and didn't get enough sleep. We wanted to have a second child, and that wasn't happening. You had to have time for that.
Yeah.
And, it was just untenable. It was unsustainable. So we realized that something has to change. So we started, studying with mentors, read books. I went back to college and got a degree in organizational management. And then our business became my guinea pig. I'd go to school at night and I'd come back the next morning and say, "Guess what we're doing?" Because I just learned this last night. And my team would just go, "Oh no, what now?"
So
So,
let me ask you this. If you had to synthesize what you do on a daily basis or give a snapshot of your career to 12-year-olds at career day, how would you explain to them what you do or what you've done and what you do now?
okay. The quick and easy version of this is that I love being an entrepreneur. I love having my own businesses, but I don't enjoy working that hard. So I learned how to step back and be the owner rather than the operator of my businesses. So I still have several businesses that we run, but I also play and I travel and I spend time with my family and we do fun things. And then the work gets done when it needs to, but it's on my terms, my schedule.
So, what did you want to be when you were younger? Where were you born and raised?
Seattle,
Okay. So,
and
what? Yeah.
yeah, I was born into an entrepreneurial family,
Okay.
so it's in my DNA. Um, so I had various dreams. I went from, being president of Pan American Airways, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't get that job. And, being president of this or that, I toyed with being a lawyer, but really all along, I wanted to be my own boss.
Yeah. So, who's been your inspirational force? Who's been that hero in your life that's allowed you to navigate and evolve as an entrepreneur to where you're at today?
My first one was my father.
Yeah.
He was a giant in the Alaska travel industry, and he's still known as Mr. Alaska. And he basically created tourism in Alaska. So, and a lot of his peers have been wonderful mentors and inspirations to me. And then there was Robert Kiyosaki. I started studying with him in Anchorage, Alaska in 1987. And he was doing a program called Money and You. And then he had several other weekend workshops called Creating Wealth and powerful presentations, things like that. And I just was a sponge, just following him around and taking as many classes as I could get from him. And this was before he wrote the Rich Dad Poor Dad and did the cash flow game and all that. In fact, I was one of the ones that got to play the beta of the cash flow game with him and his wife, Kim. And he was such a brilliant teacher, for one thing. He made learning things exciting and fun. And so part of my career was devoted to helping education and trying to get some of this more exciting learning technology into our schools because school was boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not a auditory learner. And Robert's way of teaching was very visual, very kinesthetic, very, learn from experiencing this stuff. And there were lessons that I learned in 1987 that are still with me as if I just heard them yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's a tribute to his teaching style. So I toyed with becoming a teacher at that point, and I got into various task forces and so forth in Alaska working on education. And so that was a passion. So it's actually kind of come full circle now to where I am now because now I'm again teaching.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching in a mastermind setting, entrepreneurs, and I go through my 6 principles and we study, what is going on in your business right now. And I can relate because I was there. We had a business that grew from nothing to 8 digits in annual revenue, and we sold it to Alaska Airlines. And before we sold it, we were totally out of the day-to-day operations. We were just guiding it as the owners. So, yeah, that's what I want for other people.
Yeah. So, as an entrepreneur, there's this backbone of risk and there's this
Mhm.
failure principle, the quotient that goes into it. But at the end of the day, when you look back on your career, what's the biggest risk that you've taken as an entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah. Well, all the risks take guts. I will
Yeah.
say that. And so you have to have courage and you have to have a belief in yourself, which I thank my mom and my dad for giving me that. But when my husband and he started a business when we first met in Anchorage. My business that I started was marketing consulting, specializing in tourism. And some of my early clients were tourism companies in Hawaii, and I was representing them in Alaska. So I had to go to Hawaii on business trips. And John was this guy across the hall. He had his own business, but it was real estate. And he said, "You're going to Hawaii again?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." And he's like, "I want to get in on this. I want business trips to Hawaii." So he kept picking my brain to find out more about this travel business and figured out that he could represent condo owners who lived in Alaska but owned condos in Hawaii, and he would rent the condos for them and, get a commission. And being the tourism expert that I was, I said, well, yeah, that's okay, but you really need to package that and sell a whole vacation. And I happen to represent a rental car company and an inter-island air company. And I said, just put it together with all these components and you've got a vacation package. Now you've got, something more to sell. So
Yeah.
we did that. And then we figured out how to get the air between Alaska and Hawaii incorporated into that. And we were able to buy seats from some of the scheduled carriers that were flying nonstop Anchorage, Honolulu. Well, that worked great, and the business was growing. I still had my own business, but I was like consulting and involved with his business. Our offices were side by side by that time, and then one day, those carriers pulled out of the market. They were no longer going to fly
Wow.
nonstop Anchorage, Honolulu, and it was like, uh, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We don't have a product to sell. We don't have a way to get our customers to Hawaii to take the vacation packages that we're selling to them.
Yeah.
And we seriously contemplated just closing the doors. We thought, okay, this is it. We don't have debt. We started it with nothing. It was still just all us and, bootstrapping into the business. So like, well, we could close the doors and walk away and go do something else. But we said, no, Alaskans really need this nonstop air service.
Yeah.
They love Hawaii. Hawaii is their favorite vacation destination, and it's really closer, especially with the nonstop flights. The closest is 5.5 hours from Anchorage to Honolulu, nonstop. Just,
Yeah.
we'd have ads that would say 0 to 80 in 5.5 hours,
Yeah.
temperature. So, um, so we got to figure this out. We have to find a way to do this. And my husband was brilliant. He found a plane that had time on that was not being used. It was doing charters between Anchorage and Tokyo, and then it would return to Honolulu empty. And he said, wait a minute, we can fill that plane. We can
Yeah.
put passengers on it and they can make money on that leg instead of deadheading.
Yeah.
And he talked them into doing that charter. We had to guarantee it. We had to personally guarantee the entire charter series for this one summer, summer of 1991. And we had to pay for every seat, the whole plane, whether we sold any or not. So that was a gigantic risk because
Yeah.
we really had nothing. By that time, we were using our personal credit cards to make payroll. So we were really down to the nub. And to take that kind of risk was humongous. But what we did was I got out our spreadsheets, the records of our sales for the past several summers. And I looked at the numbers and said, okay, this is the number of seats on these flights and this many flights, and did the math. Like, okay, we've sold that number of seats before. We can do that again. So we can do this.
Yeah.
And we did. We jumped.
Amazing. So when you look at the field of entrepreneurs that are alive today, if you could meet one that you admire, that you think is doing it the right way, is there anybody that you would love to meet, have a lunch with that might help you on your journey?
Oh gosh, there's many. I guess the one that comes to mind first is Tony Robbins. I've just been, watching one of his series. I've done so many of his programs, and he's an owner in 100 and something companies, and he really has the science of being the owner and not the operator down pat.
Yeah.
And another one is Ed Milet. And he's inspire both of them are in fact very inspirational and very positive and forward thinking, but they also know how to start and run businesses and you know step back and be the owner, not the operator,
So
and
what yeah.
many others.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's so many. So I'm curious, as an entrepreneur, there's a level of evolution. You have to keep up with what's going on. The world's moving at a rapid pace, especially with AI.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is that energy every day for you to wake up, to do your work at a high level, to take care of your soul, your family, to do all of these things that you dream of? You're living the dream. How do you do that every day? What is the energy for you to do that successfully?
Hmm. That's an excellent question. It comes from my soul.
Yeah.
um, I just have a burning desire to do things and to learn. And I embrace all this, the new technology. You know, a lot of people my age go, ugh, AI, ugh, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I'm going, what can Chat GPT tell me today? You know,
Yeah.
so and figuring out other ways to be efficient. You know, some of the principles that I teach are using leverage, and AI is a fantastic leveraging tool.
Yeah.
So, you know, my advice to anyone in business is, okay, you don't have to be an AI expert, but you better well learn how to use it in some way in your business, or you're going to get left behind. And, you know, this is something my husband and I have been able to pivot several times in our career. I mean, we sold our company to Alaska Airlines back in 2008, and that's when we did the pivot into buying small cruise ships. And then after that, we pivoted into the multifamily real estate. I'm not sure what's next, but you know, it's like, yeah, you got to keep your eye on the horizon. And as a matter of fact, we would not have been able to sell our business had we not been looking at the world around us, because we saw that Alaska Airlines was positioning itself to enter the Hawaii market.
Yeah.
Prior to that, they had only been West Coast based. They had not flown any further west than, you know, the West Coast cities.
Yeah.
But we saw them extending their certifications for ETOPS, which is extended over water um, passenger travel. And it's like, okay, they're not doing that because they need that for flying up and down the West Coast. So they must be thinking about jumping over the Pacific to Hawaii. So we recognized that, and early on, before they ever announced that they were going into Hawaii, we approached them with the idea of buying us because we knew that their pockets were deeper than ours, and they'd have to either win the market from us or buy it from us. So
Yeah.
we proposed that it would be cheaper and better for all of us if they just bought the market from us. So
Wow.
it took a couple of years, but that's what we did. And we struck that deal before they ever announced their service. I mean, we actually still operated service for them after we sold because they weren't ready to do the Anchorage Honolulu flights yet.
Wow. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight and run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you had a big
Hmm.
coffee table book in your hands and you handed it over, and it was the life that you've lived, that you've orchestrated so far, would that young version believe that this is the life that's happened?
No way. No way.
Would
No.
you give any?
I remember even older than that, probably in my early 30s, or late 20s, early 30s. John and I were married and we were in Hawaii. We were driving around the Big Island and I saw this house with a blue tiled roof, and it was a big house, you know, it just looked like really expensive, beautiful home. I said, oh, that would be wonderful to have a house like that someday. You know, maybe 20 years from now, we could do that. And my husband just laughed and said, it's going to happen a lot sooner than that. And
Wow.
it did.
Wow.
So we bought this beautiful home in Maui in 1999, so not very many years after that. Uh, The tile roof is not as blue as I wanted it to be, but that's all right. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, you mentioned Hawaii and you're in Alaska. What is it like to contrast between those environments? Is it just wonderful to feel the difference between those environments?
yeah, they're both incredibly beautiful, lots of natural scenery, and a lot of spirituality in both places. And the native culture is actually very similar in both places. You know, dancing and they're dressed entirely differently, obviously,
Yeah.
coconut shells and one, you know, and fur parkas and you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's very similar. They're also sort of the outcasts from the US. You know, people kind of ask us, "Well, what kind of postage do you use here?" You know, it's like, really?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, you know, we have to pay exorbitant shipping costs in both places. So it's very similar. So we love both places. Just, you know, but but at this point in our lives, we're actually selling the Maui house right now
Okay.
um, because it's a new chapter in our lives. Our daughters, one of them is in Australia with three kids, or our grandchildren, and our youngest daughter, we eventually did end up having a second child because we found the time. And she's now in Arizona expecting her first child.
Wonderful.
So I think that the landscape is going to be more time in Arizona and
Yeah,
in Australia and less time in Maui.
that's
So
wonderful.
yeah.
So, of everything that you've accomplished and evolved to and become, what are you the proudest of?
Hmm. What am I the proudest of? Um, Being able to survive and pivot and go from one success to another and have the ability to apply the learning and the principles to whatever situation I'm in. That ability to translate from one situation to another. I mean, I think that that has been a talent of mine and my husband's, and so I'm really proud of that. That we're survivors. We're resilient, and it doesn't matter what you throw at us. I mean, we had 9/11 to deal
Yeah,
with an airline. That was a challenge.
yeah.
We had, other things, volcanoes going off in Alaska where the planes were grounded. I mean, all kinds of things that we've been faced with, and time again, we've been able to be resourceful and pivot and figure out what to do and come out on top.
What's that big, huge word retirement mean to you?
That's not in my vocabulary.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
I didn't
No.
think so. Yeah, ain't gonna happen.
No, that's synonymous with, like, sitting in a porch swing and
Yeah,
watching the world go by.
no.
No.
So we've talked about these beautiful places between Alaska and Hawaii, and you're clearly in the travel world and you've traveled a lot. What has been one of the most unexpectedly magical places you've been to on this planet?
We just went there in May and June last summer. The Svalbard Islands.
Okay.
They are northwest of Norway. They're part of Norway, but you still have to use your passport to get in there.
Yeah.
And they're off the northeast coast of Greenland. And we were on a cruise that started in Scotland, went up the coast of Norway, and then over to the Svalbard Islands. There's a population of maybe 2 or 3 thousand in the Svalbard Islands,
Wow.
and that's the northernmost, like, human settlement on the planet, I believe.
Yeah.
And we got as far north as 80 degrees north latitude,
Wow.
which, as you know, the North Pole is 90 degrees.
Yeah.
So we were like 700 miles or so south of the North Pole,
Wow.
and in an ice flow, this ice pack, and just moving very slowly with this ship. And it was like, oh my God, I'm
Wow.
like on another planet. I mean, where are we? I mean, just out there so far from anyone else. It was just amazing.
Wow.
And the
That's
Svalbard Islands were so beautiful. I mean, Alaska, is the most beautiful place in the world.
sure.
But the Svalbard Islands, oh my God, it took my breath away.
Wow.
It was a spiritual experience, really. It was, like God's masterpiece. Mm,
That's wonderful. So
yeah.
let me ask you this, Ral. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I've been consciously molding my perception of myself over the years. And now my image of myself is I am strong, powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and a bit bold and sassy. And I can do just about anything. And I don't let age or anything else stop me.
That's amazing. So let me ask you this. Having such an adventurous spirit, I got to know if you got into a time machine and you could go back in time and see one event in human history, where would you go? What would you love to see? And it wouldn't create a weird Back to the Future tear in time. You would just get to witness it and then come on back if you wanted to.
Oh, how to choose. I
I
mean,
know there's so much. There's,
so many. Um, I don't know. I think, the early days of our country would be, I'm
yeah,
getting kind of a tingle thinking about it. I mean, to be able to witness what went on in Independence Hall
yeah,
with Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and John Adams and all of those brilliant people,
yeah.
and to witness the arguing and the, trying to figure out what this country could be, should be, that would be fascinating.
Yeah. So if anybody is ready to live the dream, they want to reach out, they have questions, they want to get to where you're at, where's the best
Yeah.
place for them to go?
Well, ralwest.com is my
Okay.
website. Yeah, definitely. And you can, if you want to book a call with me and talk a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish with your business and where you want to take it and what your life could be like, go to ralwest.com/let's talk.
Wow. This has been wonderful. Ral, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. What a wonderful, enlightened, wise conversation in your world. It's fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
been fun.
Yes.